My name is Ian and welcome to Planted, my gardening channel. Now typically I feature what I do in my own yard, but in this video I want to share with you a very exciting trip I recently led in England. There's a company called Earthbound Expeditions and they asked me to lead a garden tour to England. So starting in mid-May, we spent 4 days in Oxford, 2 days in Tunbridge Wells and 3 days in London. And we got to see a beautiful array of stately gardens, small gardens, colourful gardens, remarkable palaces and castles. And we got to go to Chelsea Flower Show on the last day. Let me show you more. Hidcote Manor Gardens is one of my all-time favourites. It's located in the Cotswolds, a very beautiful and scenic area of England. It's about a 2-hour drive from London. And this garden is truly spectacular. It's a series of rooms that lead you from a very intensely planted centre area, and as you move through the various vistas and hedges and walkways, you end up at the edge of the garden looking out over beautiful countryside. I've been to Hidcote Manor Gardens many times, and each time it always delights. There's always something new and something special. And I think this is a very important point to make about a garden. You might see it in May and see a whole series of delights that are spectacular. But if you were to go back in September, it's a whole new experience. So don't see a garden and then think that you don't need to go back to it. There's always something extra, there's something new, something special. And Hidcote Manor always delights me. Even in springtime with beautiful wisteria. It is just a spectacular garden. It certainly will. Adjacent to Hidcote Manor is Kiffsgate Garden. Now this is a smaller garden, but nonetheless just as impressive. Beautiful manor grounds, hedges, copious amounts of perennial planting, which is one of my favourites. And I saw this beautiful piece of artwork set in and recessed into the Texas hedge, which I thought was very clever and very well done. And then there's this relatively new garden, very calm, very serene, and just so elegant. Absence of colour makes it even more striking, which is a bit of a paradox. Chipping Camden is a beautiful small town that's well worth exploring should you find yourself in the Cotswolds. Narrow roads, beautiful architecture, exquisite buildings, and the whole area is just steeped in history. Now, whenever I lead a garden tour, I always find a few little extra things that are noteworthy and special. And I was walking around the corner and saw this beautiful Euphorbia wolfenii doing exactly what it does. And I have to point out, if you go on a trip, you need a really good coach driver because the roads are so smooth. The first 4 nights of our garden tour, we were based in Oxford. And Oxford is a student city, a lot of higher and further education. And the buildings are substantial. Built many hundreds of years ago, and they're still standing today in all of their beautiful architectural glory. Now, I've been to Oxford quite a few times, but it's only when you get the chance to go on a walking tour and hear the full history of the buildings and how they came to be, and you get the chance to go up to them and see the detail of construction. I found it very moving and very special. Now you have to remember that these buildings were constructed hundreds of years ago without modern machinery to help them. And I don't think that they could possibly be any better. There's a lot of architects. Christopher Wren is one of the notable architects and heavily involved in the construction of many of the buildings at Oxford. We were able to do a private tour of the College of Magdalen College, and went to the back gardens that are out of view of the general public. And more wisteria in flower, as is the case in May, but look at this beautiful meadow, left completely untouched and allowed to grow as it did hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And here we have another special plant. This is Actinidia columicta. I've seen this plant in many locations before, but not showing quite as much colour as the one that we see here. It will not fruit, it is purely ornamental. This small spiky plant is monkey puzzle tree, or Araucaria araucana, and in the far distance you can see a conifer, and then behind it there's another tree with a brown tinge. That is a mature monkey puzzle tree, very notable and widely collected many, many years ago for its beauty and stature. Next up is Blenheim Palace. Now, Blenheim Palace is a short drive from Oxford. It is a substantial historic building with more history and more notable visitors to this property than you can possibly imagine. And I've heard a lot about Blenheim Palace, but it's only when you get inside and you start to experience the scale and the size and the stature do you fully understand the significance of this property. Now, I've not been to Blenheim Palace before, and I was very impressed with the grounds. Very well laid out, huge in its size and its vast scape, with beautiful vistas over a lake with substantial woodlands. But in any garden that you go and see, there'll always be something that can be put to work in your garden. And here we have the magical sound of water just bubbling in the background with these beautiful scallop shell waterfalls. Very attractive, very elegant, very well done. Rouse Gardens is not as famous as Blenheim Palace, but with it being in the same geographical area, it makes good sense to go and see the two gardens together. Here we have a beautiful horticultural anomaly where the plants are allowed to literally cover the pathway, and when that's in flower, it will be exquisite. Now, the garden was designed to allow you to view the manor house from afar, and there's lots of pathways and vistas that aren't immediately visible to you, but when you go into these viewing areas and see the exquisite architecture, it is quite special. I could just imagine being here with a few friends and having a cold drink on a hot sunny afternoon and looking out over the river to the beautiful Cotswold countryside. It's very easy to get carried away with new planting, but I like seeing the age and grace of older, more mature plants. Here we have a very old apple tree, and just look at this arch. It must be about 10 feet thick. The Royal Horticultural Society's garden at Wisley is a garden that everybody should try and go and see. And what makes it stand out to me is that, let's say you're a new gardener with minimal experience. You can come to this garden and you will learn so much. It need not be complicated or overwhelming, but there's lots of things that you'll be able to take home to your own garden and encourage you to grow more plants. Conversely, perhaps you're at the other end of the spectrum with substantial knowledge. There's lots of research, there's new plants, lots of demonstration gardens and show gardens to help you further your horticultural experience. I was particularly drawn to these beautiful carved stones. I thought that they were beautiful, highly polished, with a wonderful contrast with the shadows. Throughout the United Kingdom, we've got many castles, and if you've never seen a castle, you should go and see one. And if you can go to Heber Castle in the Tunbridge Wells area. This castle is set in substantial grounds with a beautiful, easy access walking tour to see large landscapes with beautiful architectural features. Everywhere I looked, there's something a little bit different, something a little bit interesting, and I particularly like the planting that I saw on these stacked stones. Very elegant, very well done, very beautiful. Our next garden tour is Penshurst Place. Now, we were able to do a tour through this historic building. The building is many, many hundreds of years old with lots of adjustments and extensions. No matter where I go, I'm always drawn to archways. They're very beautiful and they are also very strong. But for me, the standout was the beautiful, expansive grounds and garden. And here's a word: if ever you want to grow peonies, this is how you do it. Don't plant 2 or 3, plant lots. And just imagine the number of flowers you could cut from that garden. And look at this for the most simple, elegant walking corridor. A Texas hedge with curved spheres cut on each side. Just beautiful. Sissinghurst near Tunbridge Wells is an iconic garden that everybody should go and see. This is Vita Sackville-West's project that she bought many, many years ago, and it's a series of rooms with exquisite planting, full plants, beautiful pathways, and just a grace and a feel that I think is very, very special. Here we've got the artistic treatment of a fig tree with all the branches bent and twisted into a curve. And this is a linden alley, or as in England we'd call it tilia. It just takes time and effort for this to happen. And for me, the standout was being able to go up high onto a roof observation point and look down and see this quaint, idyllic, beautiful landscape. Just breathtaking to have the vision and the design ability to put this into practice. Sissinghurst really is a standout garden for me. Our next garden is Great Dexter. Now, there's lots of elements that go into a garden: design, materials, hardscape, space, shapes, but I'm always drawn to plants and planting. And Great Dexter did not disappoint. It was spectacular. I give this a resounding 10 out of 10 for its ability to actually let plants grow. They're not overly manicured, they're carefully tended, but they're allowed to interlope and they're allowed to move in with their neighbor and put down roots and grow. This border you see here, it's just cloud after cloud of full, healthy, beautiful planting that's allowed to seed and grow and move around. This garden is truly alive. And no matter where I went, I saw more and better and different plant combinations and features that were just breathtaking. I would go back to Great Dexter in a heartbeat. I'd like to see it at a different time of the year because I'm sure that there's other layers that would just be standout. When you walk down these pathways, they're deliberately left a little bit overgrown so that when you get to the end, you have this beautiful reveal that you see here. After 2 nights in Tunbridge Wells, we then moved into London, and our first garden to see was Kew Gardens, which is a vast and exotic and special garden that everybody should go and see. Now, like some of our other projects, this is gardening for everybody. There's remarkable plant collections, there's a huge number of these wonderful greenhouses that you can just walk through and experience remarkable planting. And of course, another beautiful wisteria. This one was particularly interesting because it's obviously white in colour with very long racemes. One of the greenhouses has got this plant. This is the Victoria Amazonica, the huge tropical water lily, which until you see it, you can't comprehend its size. Here we have a very simple planting of alliums, and I make the point here that you see it at one elevation, and then as you go up, you see a whole change in architecture and character. Now the size of Kew Gardens allows you to go off by yourself, and you might find a beautiful obelisk or viewing tower, as I did here, and it gives you a chance to look down and see this remarkable garden. No matter what your horticultural interest, there's a collection of plants for you. If you like dry plants, they have a dry collection. If you like rock gardens, they've got a rock garden collection. And wherever you go, there's specialist horticultural insight at every single corner, no matter what your experience. This plant is called Alocasia. It has huge substantial leaves, and I saw this one had a droplet of water in it, so I had to go up and give it a little shake. Just beautiful.
How do you want to do this? Have you got a problem?
Chelsea Flower Show is held every late May in London, It's a iconic horticultural show where the best designers, the best nurseries, the best plants all come together to create a 5-day horticultural extravaganza. Now in the marquee there's some specialist growers and specialist nurseries growing plants that you may only have seen in other countries, and they might want you to buy their plants so that you can grow them in your own yard. Here we've got a remarkable display of clematis, one of my favourite vines. And when you get the nurseries that grow these plants actually displaying the plants, you see them in their absolute prime. Now, Chelsea Flower Show is not just about plants, it's not just about design. There are many ancillary industries. Here we've got a display of remarkable art and architecture. All of these items are available for you to put in your yard if you have the resources or the space or the time to place them just how they need to be. But for many people, the absolute essence of horticulture at Chelsea Flower Show are the show gardens. Now, here the top designers with a well-backed sponsor will design and create a masterpiece of horticultural ingenuity and put it on display for 5 days so that you can come and enjoy it. Lots of ideas, lots of nudges in the right direction. And when you see these remarkable show gardens in all their glory, you will get ideas. You will think, well, that plant will grow in my yard, and I can grow it with this combination that's growing over here. So it's not to be underestimated or undervalued in any way. Our trip to England and our trip to Chelsea Flower Show was absolutely wonderful.